By the time the courthouse clock struck 9, my hands were already damp. The city outside hummed with traffic and ambition, but inside that marble building, everything felt paused, like the air was holding its breath for my marriage to officially end. I sat on a narrow bench, jacket folded beside me, coffee from a corner deli cooling in my grip. This was supposed to be a clean break. Papers signed, pride swallowed, freedom earned the hard way. The hearing room smelled faintly of polish and old paper. Lawyers whispered. Phones stayed silent. I kept my eyes on the door, half expecting my wife to arrive late, like she always did, heels clicking, apology ready. A flashback hit me without warning, Sunday mornings. Pancakes burned at the edges, her laugh floating from the kitchen while the radio played old rock songs. I believed loyalty lived in routines like that. The bailiff called our case number. My pulse jumped. I stood, smoothed my tie, and felt the weight of months settle on my shoulders. Divorce was supposed to be the end of chaos, not the start of something worse. I told myself that whatever happened today, I would walk out lighter. Then my phone vibrated. I frowned at the screen. It wasn't spam. It wasn't work. It was my boyfriend. We hadn't planned to talk today. He knew court days were raw, dangerous places for emotion. I slipped the phone back into my pocket, but it buzzed again, insistent, like a warning siren only I could hear. I ignored it and stepped forward as the judge took his seat. That's when the doors opened. The sound cut through the room like a dropped plate. Every head turned. My wife stood there, framed by fluorescent light, one hand resting on her stomach. The curve was unmistakable, not subtle, not imagined. She smiled, slow and certain, like someone arriving at a party she'd already won. My throat tightened. A memory slammed into me 3 months earlier, her suitcase by the door, her voice flat as she said she needed space. She hadn't cried. She hadn't looked back. I wondered then if I had already lost without knowing the score. She walked to her seat with steady steps, ignoring the looks, ignoring me. The smile stayed. Pride flared in my chest, then cracked. Trust, once broken, doesn't shatter loudly. It erodes grain by grain, until you notice the ground is gone. The judge asked about her condition. She answered calmly. Pregnant. Keeping the baby. Not mine. Each word landed with intent. This wasn't confession. It was performance. My phone vibrated again. Longer this time. I felt heat behind my eyes. Anger mixed with something colder, sharper. I asked for a moment and stepped back, heart pounding like a drum in my ears. I answered the call, voice low. Don't react, my boyfriend said. Not yet. I wanted to shout. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to run. Instead, I listened. Outside, a siren wailed and faded. Inside, the past and future collided, and I realized this hearing wasn't about divorce at all. It was about truth, timing. It's the cost of underestimating someone who had already prepared for war. I straightened my jacket and faced the room again, unaware that this moment, this single breath, was the last time I would feel powerless. Years of shared bills. Late dinners and quiet promises crowded my mind. I thought about loyalty as currency, about pride as armor, about regret as a debt that always comes due. The city kept moving beyond those walls, offices filling, buses stopping, vendors setting out hot dogs and pretzels for lunch crowds. Inside, I felt a strange calm, the kind that shows up before a storm breaks. I didn't know how this would end, only that I was done being managed by silence. Somewhere in the back row, friends and strangers watched, hungry for drama, unaware they were about to witness a reckoning shaped by patience, proof, and the stubborn hope that truth still matters in a loud world. That belief, fragile yet firm, would soon be tested under oath lights, and consequences no one expected before the day ended completely. Asterisk, the judge cleared his throat, bringing the room back into focus. My wife adjusted herself in her chair, hands still resting on her stomach, eyes forward, smile faint but intentional. She looked rehearsed, like she'd practiced this moment in the mirror. I stayed standing, my pulse steady now, The way it gets after fear burns off and leaves resolve behind. As the attorney spoke, my mind slipped backward without permission. A flash of a rainy Thursday night when I came home early and found the lights off, dinner untouched. Her phone buzzed on the counter. I didn't check it then. Trust made me lazy. Loyalty made me blind. I see that now. The judge asked if there were any updates to the filed statements. My wife's attorney rose smoothly, confident, presenting the pregnancy as leverage, not vulnerability. He spoke about stability, future support, shared assets. Each word was chosen for impact, designed to paint me as irrelevant to her next chapter. I glanced at her again. Our eyes met. For a moment, something flickered behind her expression, maybe relief. She thought the story was already written. My phone buzzed once more in my pocket. I didn't reach for it this time. I already knew what it meant. Timing, the judge turned to me. Do you have anything to add? I swallowed. My voice came out even. Yes, Your Honor. I'm requesting permission to submit additional evidence. A pause settled over the room. My wife's smile stiffened. Her attorney frowned slightly, just enough to reveal concern. The judge studied me, weighing patience against procedure. Finally, he nodded. Proceed. I reached into my briefcase, hands steady, and placed a slim folder on the table. The sound echoed louder than it should have. In the back row, someone shifted. Outside, a truck horn blared, then faded as I opened the folder. Another memory surfaced late nights when I asked her where she'd been, her shrug casual, her tone dismissive. You worry too much, she'd said. I believed her because believing was easier than accepting what doubt was trying to tell me. I began with emails, dates, times, patterns, nothing sensational yet, just enough to change the air. My wife's attorney leaned closer to her, whispering. Her hand tightened on the armrest. Then I played the audio. Her voice filled the room, familiar and sharp, confident, mocking, talking about plans, about money, about using the pregnancy as a shield and a sword. The room stayed silent, not shocked, but attentive. This wasn't scandal. This was clarity. Her smile collapsed. Not dramatically. It simply fell away, like it had never been real. The judge raised a hand, stopping the recording. His expression had hardened, lines deepening around his mouth. He asked a few pointed questions. My wife tried to speak, but the words tangled. Pride doesn't like being cornered. I watched her carefully. This wasn't revenge. It was consequence. There's a difference. And understanding it felt like reclaiming something I'd lost. When the judge called for a brief recess, I stepped into the hallway, leaning against the cool stone wall. My boyfriend stood at the far end, eyes steady, presence grounding. He didn't rush me. He never did. Support doesn't always mean words. As people passed, whispering, I realized something quietly powerful. The narrative had shifted. Not because I raised my voice, but because I finally refused to stay silent. Betrayal thrives in shadows. Truth does its best work in the open. The recess ended. We filed back inside. My wife avoided my eyes now. The confidence was gone, replaced by calculation. She was adapting, searching for control in a situation that no longer obeyed her script. The judge took his seat again. The air felt heavier, charged with inevitability. I knew then that whatever happened next would ripple far beyond this room, reshaping not just a divorce, but the story I would tell myself about who I was and what I deserved when this day finally closed. The judge's voice carried authority, measured and deliberate. He asked direct questions now, no patience for theatrics. Dates didn't line up. Statements conflicted. The pregnancy, once displayed like a victory banner, became a complication she hadn't fully planned for. Her attorney attempted damage control, shifting arguments, reframing intent. It sounded hollow. Truth has weight, and once it lands, excuses bounce off. I stayed quiet, answering only when asked. I had learned the hard way that silence used correctly can be powerful. Across the aisle, my wife sat rigid, jaw tight. eyes darting toward the door as if escape were an option. Another flashback surfaced: our anniversary dinner downtown. Steak and mashed potatoes, candlelight flickering. She'd toasted two forever. I'd believed her because I wanted permanence in a world that rarely offers it. The judge reviewed the documents again, then looked up. There are discrepancies here that require further examination. My wife exhaled sharply. Not relief, frustration. The judge continued. Until paternity is conclusively established, the court will not consider pregnancy as grounds for adjusted settlement or support, her attorney objected. Overruled, the shift was unmistakable. The balance tipped not in my favor, but toward fairness. And fairness felt like oxygen. During another pause, I noticed people watching me differently now. Not with pity, but with curiosity. The man who was supposed to lose was standing intact. The judge addressed property division next. Assets she assumed were secure were now questioned due to intent and misrepresentation. My wife's shoulders slumped slightly. The performance was over. Reality had taken the stage. I thought about pride then. How it can blind you into thinking you're untouchable. How humility, though uncomfortable, keeps you grounded. She had chosen pride. I had chosen patience. When the judge finally adjourned the session, pending further investigation, the room emptied slowly. My wife stood last. For a second, she looked at me not with anger, but with something closer to regret. It passed quickly. Regret, like trust, doesn't survive long without care. Outside, the city greeted us with noise and movement. Food carts sizzled. People laughed. Life, indifferent to personal collapse, marched on. My boyfriend walked beside me. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. And for the first time, I meant it. We sat at a small diner down the street, the kind with vinyl booths and strong coffee. I ordered a cheeseburger and fries, grounding myself in something simple and real. Across from me, he watched quietly, letting me process. "I didn't want revenge," I said finally. "I just wanted the truth to matter." He nodded. "It does. It just takes longer than lies." As I ate, I felt something loosen inside my chest. Not joy. Not victory. Relief. The kind that comes when you stop carrying. Someone else's deception is your burden. The hearing wasn't over. There would be tests, decisions, fallout. But the worst moment, the one designed to break me, had passed, and I was still standing. Walking back toward the courthouse to collect my things, I caught my reflection in a glass window. I looked older, harder, but also clearer. Betrayal changes you. If you let it teach instead of poison, it can carve out space for something stronger inside. My wife was speaking urgently into her phone. She didn't notice me pass. That felt right. Our stories had finally diverged. As I stepped back onto the sidewalk, sunlight breaking through the clouds, I understood something that had taken years to learn. Closure isn't given. It's claimed, and I was done waiting for permission to move forward. Asterisk, weeks passed. The city shifted seasons, trading heavy coats for lighter jackets. The divorce process dragged on, methodical and unglamorous. Paternity tests were ordered, accounts audited, stories cross-checked. Drama faded, replaced by facts. I focused on routine. Work. Morning runs along concrete paths, lined with food trucks prepping for lunch. Routine rebuilt what chaos had shaken loose. Trust, I learned, starts with trusting yourself again. My wife tried reaching out once. A short message. No apology, just pressure. I didn't respond. Silence, again, did its work. Another flashback arrived one night as I cooked dinner along grilled chicken. Buttered corn, something she used to love. I remembered how she'd talk about the future, about building something lasting. I wondered when the story changed, or if I had simply stopped listening to the warnings beneath the words. The final hearing came faster than expected. This time, she arrived early. No smile, no performance. The pregnancy was still visible, but it no longer commanded the room. The judge reviewed the paternity results. Not mine, not the man she claimed. The room stayed quiet, heavy with consequence. There was no one left to blame. Decisions were issued cleanly, assets divided fairly. No alimony, no leverage. Just an ending. When it was over, she looked at me one last time. "I thought I'd won," she said softly. I nodded. So did I once. Outside, the city felt different. Not louder. Not brighter. Just honest. I walked without weight for the first time in years. Later, sitting on my apartment balcony, eating takeout pizza, I thought about freedom. Not the reckless kind, but the earned kind. The kind that comes from surviving disappointment without becoming bitter. My boyfriend joined me, handing over a slice. We talked about nothing important. That mattered most, the past didn't disappear. It settled. And in that settling, I found space to breathe, to rebuild, to choose better when the next chapter began. Months later, life looked ordinary again. That was the miracle. Work promotions. Weekend plans. Small joys. Trust returned slowly, earned through consistency, not promises. I saw my ex once, by chance, across a crowded street. She looked tired, human. The distance between us felt final, and that brought peace. I thought often about the courtroom, about that moment she walked in smiling, about how close I came to breaking. Strength, I learned, isn't loud. It waits. It prepares. The city kept teaching me lessons about pride, about loyalty, about choosing truth even when it costs comfort. I listened this time, asterisk on the anniversary of the hearing. I walked past the courthouse again, not out of pain, but perspective. The building stood unchanged, indifferent. As me led what she thought was her victory, became my release. Not because I won, but because I refused to lose myself. During our divorce hearing, my cheating wife walked in pregnant, smiling like she won. Then I walked out free.